Happy Tuesday. Yeah, I gotta get that off. All right, happy Tuesday, everyone. I hope you can join me, take a break out of your day, have some important things to talk to you about. So, I have a special guest, another special guest joining me today. Before I get to that angelic individual, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Sarah Chanadu Jurinzu Karatala, and I am by trade a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. I'm proud to serve my community and help different families, mothers, and children across the lifespan with different things that impact their mental health. And one dear issue that is on my mind and in our community today is deportation and immigration. Some of you don't know, but I am a second generation Nigerian queen. And without the migration from my father from the federal state of Nigeria to the U.S. to serve and be as excellent as he has been, God rest his soul, I would not be here today. So proud to be his daughter and the daughter of my beautiful queen mother as well for finding this warrior in the midst of the sea. So with that to be said, I have a special guest to talk about all the different adversity from Better You Wellness. She is a licensed family and marriage counselor. I'm very proud to connect and to collaborate with her as well. And we're going to get started here soon. And we're going to be talking about the different things that are affecting our community, our families, that are how it's affecting the psyche within the family unit. So it's almost lunchtime in most places, well, in the central time span. So go ahead and join and chime in. Hi,
Hi.
Talisha.
How are you, Chinadu? I couldn't get on my computer for some reason, but we're here. So,
Yes, yes, I encountered the same blockage.
okay. All right.
But I'm glad that we can still connect.
Yes, likewise, likewise. Yep.
Yes, yes. So I was just telling the people that have been able to join, not sure how many will be able to join during this live, but you'll definitely be able to review all of the different facts and opinions that we talk about in this session. But we are going to be talking about the psychology impacts and the type of support and relief that we offer different families as they're going through these community changes and impacts from deportation and immigration within America. And I did tell everybody how you are a licensed family and marriage counselor.
Licensed marriage family therapist associate, practicing in
Yes.
Texas and Washington, and yeah, happy to be here to discuss this important topic with you.
Yes, yes. So I'm glad that you're here. I know your expertise is so important, and this is a dear issue to your heart. So
hmm
to get started, I know we talked about some of the considerations and how this affects the family. So here are five things that I came up with. It's increasing the anxiety and fears, and that's what I'm seeing with my clients. They are very anxious, very worried, concerned, as they should be. What about you?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I would take it a step further to say, I see it with people that, are just regular citizens like of this country that, maybe some people think that shouldn't be a concern. And maybe at one time that wasn't a concern, but now I think it does have wide-reaching impacts with everybody. I don't think anyone is safe, from it, and so I think you're right, we should be concerned as a whole. Yeah.
Yes, good point. There's so many stories of people who are U.S. citizens
Hmm.
and they're being detained
Hmm.
unwillfully, and it's a very scary thing. And it's impacting a lot of businesses, a lot of entertainment, restaurants
Hmm.
as well.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really troubling to see when you see the media, of, someone being chased or, just and also the fact that these agents are unidentified, right? At last I checked, they're in these nebulous like white vans and wearing face masks and unidentifiable, and it's just really horrendous to watch, to see. It really impacts your nervous system to see that.
Hmm. Hmm. It leaves too much gray area for people who have a lot of bad ideals to
Mhm.
do a lot of bad things.
Exactly, exactly. I did hear that there were criminals who were taking advantage of this, the fact that they're unidentified and, in face masks. Of course, taking advantage of it to commit crimes like molestations and robberies. So I think we need to be, aware of that as well. I feel like personally, like I'm like, you're not identified, like I'm not stopping. I'm like, I'm not. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? I'm gonna fight back because I don't know, like, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, really, really unprecedented times that we're in.
Yes, yes. A study that I found with the American Psychology Association, and I'm unsure how relevant it is on the time span, but they revealed that nearly 70% of undocumented immigrants report feeling overly anxious about their immigration status.
Hmm.
Um, I can imagine overall what this is doing to their overall health.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think I would it would definitely be challenging, right, to continue your everyday life, as if, right, this isn't happening. I think just before we jumped on, I was describing to you that at one point, I was looking at potentially relocating, and I know what that process. It's a lot. It's a big process. It's very, it's a change. It's a whole transition, right? It's a whole life event, and to get yourself and or your family members. There's documentation. There's time, that is involved. There's thinning out your material, your goods, you know what I mean, to actually make the transition and to think that, you're coming for a better life and then, to have this disruption, I can just only imagine what that's doing. And it's not as easy or as simple as some people might make it seem to just go back, to just give your life, start your life back. I've even talked to people out of the country who say that if they come to the US, if they leave their country, that their country holds that against them, right? So when you go back, it may not be a welcome environment, So, I mean, under these circumstances, I would hope that that would not be the case, but who knows, So it's not as simple, I think, as just going back.
Oh, that is such a good point. A lot of the psychological evaluations that I do, for right now, they've been for hardship waivers for
Hmm.
someone who is maybe going to face something emotionally, physically, or mentally hardship or financially if their loved one leaves the country. But um, the visas for people who are seeking asylum, um, a lot of times are denied, and it's a long process, and these individuals, they work so hard to rebuild a life here. Just in my community years ago, at least over 2 years ago, they put a Burger King right in front of my community, and the owner of that, he owns like five Burger Kings, and he migrated from Mexico.
Wow.
You know, hard worker. I'm like, how did you get the capital
Mhm,
and the knowledge to open all these Burger Kings and
mhm,
franchise them, keep them
mhm,
going, you know?
mhm, mhm,
So just to think if someone like that was removed from the community, it
mhm,
would be a domino effect
mhm,
because
mhm.
their businesses would fall, their families would collapse, and then everyone that was underneath that hierarchy would be out without of jobs.
Mhm.
Um, it's very tragic.
Yeah. I love what you say because, thinking from a systemic perspective, right? None of these things are happening in a vacuum. It's not that it's going to happen and have no impact on those of us that are here, right? And so I think for a lot of us, there's a lot of anxiety. There's, like you said, depression in some cases.
Hmm.
And for the people that are going through it, I can only imagine if you've actually, had some detainment, that occurred, whether it's you yourself or somebody in your family, that can cause PTSD. I was talking with clients not long ago, and they were kids, and I was trying to like bring this down to a level that makes sense. And we're talking about violence, and the fact that you don't have to see it yourself. It's like secondhand smoke, right? Secondhand smoke is also not healthy for you. And,
Hmm.
watching trauma is the same, watching trauma unfold, whether it's on TV or like whether we're live, seeing it, it has an impact. You as if you're not the person that's being, having the trauma directly executed, there's a feeling of helplessness sometimes. There's also survivor's guilt or just guilt, at having been there and maybe feeling like you didn't do enough, maybe feeling like you could have done something more. But then many people go into like survival mode. That might mean that instead of fight, maybe they flight or maybe they freeze shut down. We think about polyvagal theory and those three states of our nervous system, right?
Hmm.
They might respond by freezing or shutting down, which is just a way that our brain tries to protect us. But then
Hmm.
oftentimes that can leave people feeling guilty after the fact, like, oh, I should have done more, to try to prevent this or step in. And the reality is, that's just not always possible. So we have to have grace as well. But yeah.
Yes, yes. Good point. Good point. Like the analogy you gave about secondhand smoke,
Mhm,
there's a lot of different cultures being affected
mhm,
by this separation, and then some so not. I know we talked about before we got on this session about it being showcased on the news that most of the people who are being displaced are from a Latino or Hispanic background, but this is a multicultural um, pandemic, deportation that's happening. In fact, just a lot of it's not being showcased. And for the families that are not in those categories, even from a European background, I'm getting a lot of clients that are having trouble with sleep disturbance,
mhm,
with concentration concerns, attention deficit, just lack, decrease in functionality and motivation, a sense of will to live, due to seeing, from what they tell me, people being kidnapped and displaced.
mhm. Yeah, and that's essentially what it feels like. It feels like a kidnapping, right? It's awful. Yeah, and I could totally see how that would create some sleep disturbances. We have to be in a certain place to be able to sleep, right? Like when our nervous system is disrupted, it's going to be harder to sleep because we need to be in that like rest or digest. We need to be able to like be in that space. And when our nervous system is not there because we're activated somehow, that is a place of disconnection. That's a place of it's not safe, right? If we're in one of those other states. And so that totally makes sense. If it's not safe, it's going to be hard to rest. And when it's hard to sleep or rest, that impacts every other functionality during the day. So it's totally makes sense. And then when you think about the generational impacts, right, that this is a type of trauma that's being stored in the body.
Hmm.
And when you think about offspring down the road, like if we don't process this, right, it gets frozen, trapped in the body. And then
Yes.
this gets passed, generation after generation, this like trauma impact or imprint. And so I can only imagine, when you think about trauma, like it has so many invisible effects as well. It affects people's cognition. When you think about our kids, even, that are going through this, their performance in school, their ability to perform, that is a big impact. But it also impacts adults, like you just said, an ability to focus, concentrate when they're trying to work or do other things, or even just read. You have those impacts. You have memory. Like essentially, it's a disruption of your nervous system, right? And so all of those functions that rely or interact with the nervous system can be impacted, and this can have long-term effects generation after generation. So it's really um, I think it's really important to like highlight and not minimize the impacts of it, try to get help, try to, take care of ourselves as best we can, not only for our generation, but for generations to come as well.
Yes. Yes. Before you got on live, I was explaining to everybody how my father migrated from Nigeria, and how I witnessed him going through the military. Um, Thankfully, by the time they got to Texas, that's when I was created into this life, and I think I got the best of him. But I did, now in hindsight, looking back, see so many changes in his mindset, from just having no family here, from what he originated from.
Mhm.
And then, as well, the ideal of having to constantly build, build, and build. And so, while I'm very grateful, that stress really, to a certain point, overcame him. And just to know that in an instance, someone in their family can be displaced like that. Um, what are some things that you would recommend someone in that situation that is waiting to see if their family member is going to be displaced, or if someone's going to come to their job and say, hey, you have to come with us? What are some things that you think would be helpful that they could do in this season?
Yeah, I think it's such a great question. And, we all know that it's helpful to try to prepare, have your risk mitigation plan in place in advance, if at all possible, as much as possible. Try to have some cash on hand, if at all possible, that you can keep in a safe place. Not, I wouldn't, go overboard, but, have some cash on hand so that in as case of emergency, you're not just strapped without anything.
Mhm.
And, try to have ways of contacting keywords, maybe even like a safe phrase or something that if your loved one, gets an opportunity to reach you, but there's not like a lot of time for that, for conversation or something like that. Even just having like a phrase that is maybe a distress signal, something that even over a quick, 2 second, 5 second call or whatever that you can convey that lets you know.
Mhm.
Um, I think those can be helpful. And then, maybe having some sort of plan of response, of how you're going to, what steps you can take. And so we can only control ourselves, right? So just
Mm.
figuring out if the actual deportation goes through, how will the family respond? Should the
Mhm.
family, have plans to join, their loved one back in the home country, if that can be done. I know we talked about also joined before we joined that it's not always easy. Like if you're, people will say just go back. Well, it's not easy for most people to maintain two residences, right? So if one person gets deported and the rest of the family is still here, can you afford to pick up and go, just go back to the other place and let
Mhm.
the let the primary residence go? That's something each person has to evaluate. But I would
Mhm.
say those are a few things that kind of jump out at me, and just having a support system, some community as much as possible around you, that you can that they can rally, because I can tell you, like what we've seen in the media, um, already having that presence and that community, and having the community be have a plan, right, of action is so super helpful, because when it
Yes.
happens, if you already have this plan, we talked about that, the response,
Mhm.
the trauma response, fight, flight, freeze.
Mhm.
When you have a plan, it makes it less likely that you're just going to be kind of like going into that freeze mode, right? You can actually
Right.
already have this plan. So now I was disrupting audio, but yeah, I mean, those are some things that I could think right off the top. It's been really helpful for the communities to rally around and to protest, to get actions, get things reversed, even though it may take time, but just to continue and being persistent with that. What are some ways that you can think of?
Yeah, I think the planning is the key. To tag on to that, implementing some family planning. I know we talked about all of the children that are being displaced, and I did tell you the article that I found with the American Immigration Council online article, and it was dated back in 2018. So I'm not sure how skewed or accurate, up to date the data was, but it showed in the month of April to June over 2,000 children were displaced from their families. So, um, if anyone has family in the States, or they've created a family unit or a community support, reaching out to those people and letting them know, hey, this is what's going on. And definitely someone that you trust. If this were to happen, you would be the second person that I would want you to take care of my children.
Mm-hmm.
Also, in that planning, getting your children a passport right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do get displaced, you can reconnect with them in the future through the hands of these angels in your community that'll help you mitigate your family back together. Also, don't shy away from using other tools like medication management to help mitigate and balance out your chemicals in your nervous system. It's a tool, just like using a lawyer's assistance and support is a tool, getting psychotherapy is a tool, medication management, using psychotropics is a tool, also considering any mineral deficiencies or herbal supplements. These are all tools that'll help you be balanced. The more balanced you are, the clearer that you can be on your plan for your family, for your decisions, and the easier that you'll be able to handle whatever outcome comes. Because in this type of situation, we're powerless, so we can't control the outcome, but we can adjust and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are really good tips too. And I like what you said, about even the medication management, and therapy are really good for just when you notice that your nervous system is in a state of activation,
Mhm.
which in times like this, sometimes people can just stay in that activated state and be just on hyper arousal because it feels like you can't go anywhere without looking over your shoulder, because you
Mhm.
don't know, like, what's going to happen. And so I love the idea of, getting some medication management, or tools that can help you just learn how to bring yourself back to a baseline, so that you're not in that activated state constantly, which is not sustainable, right? So what people tend to do is they get into that activation state and then they might go into shutdown mode because it's not sustainable to stay there, right? Our nervous
Mm.
system can't sustain that for very long. So I love what you said about those recommendations as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And good point on bringing knowledge to this conversation about different signs and symptoms that would tell you there's something that is going disarray. And the freezing, the hyperarousalness, hypervigilance. Yes, that is your body trying to protect itself, which you have all right to, but eventually it will lead to exhaustion, fatigue, sleep disruption, a loss of desire to eat and just enjoy the things that you normally enjoy. And these things come in waves, but it would be something, what would you say, longer than 2 weeks at a time that would occur?
Yeah, I mean, everybody is different, right? So people's tolerance, people's, level that they can, sustain is different. Some people might experience that they are in this state of activation, they go into shutdown, and then they might come out and it might look like anger, right? But underneath the
Mhm.
anger, there's always something else. And I think it could be so easy for that to happen even within the family unit itself when we have these outside stressors. When we think of like historic, right? Just not to get too far off a topic, but like thinking about historically some of the things that have happened when we think about, for example, slavery and how, people that were interfacing, like the adults, the man of the house might interface with the environment, which was very toxic and very taxing, and then
Mhm.
they came home often and displaced that in a way off onto the wife, who then often might displace it onto the children. So it
Mhm.
has this ripple kind of effect. And, it can be very easy to do that when you're under stress yourself and
Mhm.
we need to be able to recognize that, right? Recognize where we are in our own nervous system, first of all. And when you know that you're not in a good place, you know that you're activated, that's probably not a good time to try to engage, with people. You might need to take care of yourself, like do some coping mechanisms, do some things that you feel are good about being able to bring you back to a baseline or at least somewhere that feels more sustainable than that super activated state. So for
Mhm.
some people, that might be meditation. For some people, that might be journaling. For some people, when there's anger or a lot of fear, those are emotions that have a lot of energy with them. So like
Mhm.
running or exercise, even if it's jumping jacks, something like that to discharge that energy in a healthy, productive way,
Mhm.
versus punching a hole in the wall.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think, it's largely about just tuning in to ourselves and recognizing what is when we feel like we're not ourselves, what's unusual for us, when our appetite changes, when our sleep changes, as you mentioned,
Mhm.
mood instability, just kind of tuning in because these are signs, these are warnings that we need to heed.
Mhm.
And if we can do that early, we might be able to catch it before, we start to have negative impacts on our families, our kids, who are just innocent, oftentimes. And they're
Mhm.
also going through their own level of stress that they may or may not feel like they have the tools or voice or space
Mhm.
to share.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that's such a good point. That's such a good point. So I love the ideal that you brought up that right now you can take action. You don't have to wait for an appointment. We definitely want you to reach out. Engage in psychotherapy, engage in rebuilding and restructuring, understanding your thoughts, your mindset, the psychology about everything you're experiencing with Tylisha at Better
A better you
a
wellness.
Better You Wellness, and definitely do that. But right now, today, after you watch this, if you're like, I need relief right now, take even 5 minutes to meditate, to stretch, to take a walk outside. Let that sun just activate you. Yes. I think also in conjunction as you're going through these tough spiritual tides and, like you said, challenging these ripples, take some time to consider medication management. It's just like anything else. If you have diabetes, which is rooted from stress and chronic overactivity of the nervous system and other things that cause inflammation, take some time to value your brain and the chemicals that are serving the rest of your body and thinking about how it's going to impact your organs long term. Medication management doesn't have to be something that you engage in long term, but just starting on it will give you great relief and will be a great conjunction in with the psychotherapy to give you that balance that you're looking for as you try to do that family planning, as you try to cope with the ideal of what's going to happen next.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, that's really good. It's really good. Yeah. I love the whole piece for the sun too. I'm a big sun advocate. Like the sun is like,
Mm.
that 100% natural thing that we can do. Now, when you're in climates that it isn't as freely available,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing, right? But yeah, I love that and definitely advocate for the medication management as well as therapy to support. And I love that you said it doesn't have to be long term because I know some people have, concerns with that. But I think, it definitely can be a solution to support during this time. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. And there's different kinds. A lot of people will challenge me with, well, is this going to make me doped up? Is it going to make me feel addicted? And like, if you get with the right person that is looking at your symptoms and your chemistry,
Mhm.
then no. And if you are in self awareness of what's going on the inside, then no. If something does go wrong, there's always room for change.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, how would somebody get in contact with you? How would they schedule their first appointment?
Yeah, they can go on the website. There's options available. So it's a betteryouwellnessus.com, a betteryouwellnessus.com. And that is one way they can use the online scheduling there, or they can give us a call or text at 832-810-8034. That's 832-810-8034.
That's
What about
awesome.
for you?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then for myself, they can reach out to me at contigobh.com. They can also call or text. Everything is by voicemail and call back, but you can always text 214-764-6810. And I will get back to you in 24 to 48 business hours.
Amazing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today and discussing this difficult topic. I hope to talk further about this with you and do more collaboration with you.
That sounds great, Trinity. Thanks for holding space and making time for this very important and relevant topic. And I look forward to further collaborations as well.
Awesome. Always.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye bye.